Hi, friends. Welcome to GESLIER'S Game. The book is coming out Halloween 2026. You can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, X, and on Rumble. We're going to get that going. Promise. I think we'll have set up before the next episode. GESLIER'SGame.com. Check out the website. You can find out more about the story. Check out the latest news, announcements, cool gear, some music and art related to the new world that's coming. You could argue some of it, maybe all of it, is already here. It's the future. It hasn't happened yet. It's not yet history. The simulations have all been run, and it is the most likely scenario. Only the details on the fringes have yet to be determined. Tech evolution's coming. The Revo is coming. The network is coming. We're all playing the game right now. Some of you know it, and others, well, let's educate you. Let's entertain you and educate you at the same time. Why not? We should have fun with what we're doing, even if it's taking a look at things in the shadows, dark things, the evil that may be all around us, the evil that may be inside us. We're surrounded by it. Just so you know, it's here. We've heard about some of it. Most of us tend to ignore it, but it's not ignoring you. While you watch cat videos on your phone or reality TV or grown adults chasing around a ball or a puck, and guilty is charged, the evil is taking great interest in you. It's studying you, it's classifying you, it's cataloging you, almost like preparing a menu for you, setting up the harvest and the meal that comes after. You might laugh at that one. And it's funny in a way. The groups that are hunting you, me, all of us, they're actually laughing at you. They're laughing at me, laughing at what we put up with, laughing at how easy we are to manipulate. Like the boyfriend or the girlfriend that's dating multiple people behind your back, laughing at how stupid you are. We've all been there at one point or another, but I think we're all here now. We're all here now. And they aren't just laughing at you. They despise you. They hate you. I mean, think about it. They would probably, we've all seen the emails to some degree or another. I don't think anybody's totally ignorant on that, but they would fillet you up and serve you at a party if they thought they could get away with it. For now, they have to smile at you, laugh behind your back. Read the files, baby. It's all there. They're laughing at you, me, all of us. But that begs the question, how did we get so stupid? Or maybe it's just ignorant. For, for creatures that are brazenly egotistical with overinflated ideas of our own intelligence, how did we get so stupid? Or were we this stupid all along? Or just afraid, maybe unaware, or a combination of the three? I'm going to go with the last one. I think it's a combination of being unaware, afraid, egotistical. You know, when I was a kid, horror was different. Stephen King's The Stand was the first book I read. I was hooked. The battle between good and evil. Horror was different back then. In the 80s, they were scary people and scary crimes. Serial murderers became a thing. Well, they were probably always a thing. Think H.H. Holmes, Jack the Ripper. but we really started to identify them, to study them in the 80s. The FBI got their hooks in, leaned into the study of that, learn about them, psychopaths, cannibals. And of course, everyone knew governments did some crazy things in the shadows, but I think people chalked that up to the backroom murders that maybe they felt they had to do to protect society, to protect the nation, the dirty things to keep us safe. It was always framed like that. It was something that necessary, keep us safe from a bigger, larger evil. Things that people didn't really want to acknowledge. Things leaders have been guilty of since the dawn of time, I guess, for the most part. Nothing new there, different problems leading, keeping power. Governments are, I guess, forced or feel they need to do some nasty things. But I think growing up, we thought we had intrepid reporters and brave whistleblowers. They kept the darkness at bay. They kept the government from getting too dark. At least that's what we were led to believe. I remember in the 70s and 80s, the horror stories. We fantasized about evil corporations that were going to make us slaves or already had. Harvest our organs. Damn, I remember Coma, creepy movie. I wonder if that movie's available in China. Anyone? Note to self, check Coma. Is that released in China? In the 70s and 80s, the communist scare had us thinking collectivism would enslave us all and take over the world, bring back the murder camps of communism, the communism that disappeared in the 1990s. We had rabid dogs. We had fungus from outer space. We had supernatural evil guys with rubber masks and long, sharp knives. Burned child abusers that haunted your dreams. Satanic childhood possession that needed the help of a priest. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was scary, at the time. I think especially when you're young, but I think most of it was more than that. It was more fun than actually terrifying. The truly scary part about the 1980s was the Cold War and the constant threat of nuclear war, world destruction. At least for me, I can't talk for a whole generation, but I think it was safe to say, looking back, that was the overriding fear. But even that was mitigated by the constant nature of the threat, which led to the desensitization of it. And the finality of the thing also mitigated the fear. It would most likely be all over quickly for most of us. For the vast majority, there'd be no prolonged suffering, just quick annihilation. So why worry? Of course, we had serial killers, cannibals, child predators, but the accounts of those monsters were largely sanitized, edited for general consumption, and in some cases, it seemed the killers were even created by the government. Check out the book Chaos about the Manson murders and the Haight Ashbury Clinic. The CIA was all over that, turning people into zombies with LSD, wiping their minds clean, and then re- rewriting the software. It'll blow your mind, get you thinking. Did they ever actually stop? And then in the late 90s and early 2000s, the internet rolled around, started to change how we receive our information, what types of information we had access to. There were largely no censors. Remember that in the beginning. You wanted real horror, real death scenes, car accidents, violence. Wow. Some of us were morbid boys and girls. Actually, I would think we were just curious. It was the dark thing that you brought into the light. It was the unknown, and I think it was always that uh, voyeuristic sense. It was someone else. It was someone else. You lived today. You survived. Not so for those in the videos, but you remained unscathed, at least physically. Who knows what that did to us? The beginning of the internet, a DARPA creation, by the way, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Think about that. The Department of Defense is responsible for turning you into zombies, for censoring you, for brainwashing you. The Department of Defense, the DoD, is responsible for ruining dating indirectly. Of course, they had some help for ruining the way in which we find our soulmates. Who was the creator that called the dating apps the unholy sex tornado? I think that was Whole Math. Brilliant, brilliant. Sounds like a cool name for a punk rock band. Unholy sex tornado. Wow, maybe 280s. But back to the gore. With a click of the mouse, we could view crime scene photos, autopsy vids, war vids. Um, they never showed you that in documentaries. What an artillery round does to a human skull, or a 50 cal round. We could watch religious fanatics who treated their victims like animals. We get to see systematic killing for the first time. We got to see what police and first responders see when they roll up to a job, the gruesome reality of flesh versus steel in all its forms. And shout out to them. Shout out to them, boy. That was eye opening. That was eye opening. Uh, their bad day is much different than most people's bad worst day or bad day. Uh, Amazing what they have to go through as a routine part of their job. But more so the accidents and more so the results of violence, we got to see killers toying with their victims. I remember one instance that stuck in my mind, watching Chechen fighters casually conversing with a Russian prisoner before shooting him, and then casually liberating his head from his shoulders with a knife. Um, and this was intended for a large audience. It was production, dramatic effects, set to music. To me, that was something sinister. Not not so much the individual act uh, of violence, but toying with victims. Killing them wasn't enough. They had to toy with them, terrorize them, humiliate them. The killing wasn't so much a means to an end. It was like the killing was the end. It was enjoyable. I think it was that revelation that people could be so heartless, so ruthless to one another that ruined the classic horror stories. For me, just the real world, it turned out, was scarier than a lot of what you found on the pages of those horror stories. So, you know, understood later on why some people can take such glee, such enjoyment from the fact. Uh, and it has to do with their classification of you, where you rank in the world of human beings and livestock and animals, things to be harvested or things to amuse yourself with. But it didn't strike me as something that was just practical, just a practical problem of a piece of land or some agreement that just diplomacy couldn't handle. It was something different. It was something else to it, something macabre, something dark. The practicality thing is one thing. I remember my first time hunting. The group I went with were all experienced hunters from childhood. They were raised playing the game. They would talk about killing humanely, one shot, one kill, no suffering. It was a practical thing as well as a moral thing. You didn't want to flood the meat with cortisol. You didn't want to lose the kill to your neighbor. Wild game, deer especially, are such tough creatures. They can run miles after being mortally wounded. So you didn't want your neighbor eating a month, on your on your kill. But it wasn't just practicality. There was a morality to it, and that was a heavy part of it. You didn't want the animal to suffer needlessly. What was the point? If that turned you on, you're a sadist. You're on your way to being a serial killer if you get off on hurting animals for enjoyment. The animal's life is taken to provide sustenance. You could eat for weeks or months on what you harvested out there. And I remember after a kill, the group would respect the animal. There was a somber moment, but before the knife was taken to it and the carcass was dressed, it was a practical thing. There was no ghoulish delight in seeing another creature in pain or seeing the lifeless, you know, body. There was no demonic thrill about seeing a creature's insides. It was work. It had to be done so that you could benefit from harvesting the animal. There was no enjoyment. There was no aim, no look to prolong the suffering. Uh, it was expected that you kill quickly. There was a purpose behind the kill. And I guarantee you that if anyone in that particular group, which I later found to be an extremely typical group of hunters, found out that anyone was taking an unhealthy joy in the process, they would not have been invited back. I know some people aren't fans of hunting, and I'm not going to sit here and discuss the morality of hunting. Don't even bother with those types of comments. If that's the topic question, then it's apparent you don't understand the game and you never will. It only means that you've been programmed to unlearn the ancient knowledge. You've been programmed to have contempt for the game that's being played around you at this very moment. You've been programmed to go blindly through life without understanding the true nature of your kind. You've been programmed to be the prey. And I hate to inform you, the time for harvest is almost here, my friends. I think for some it's come and gone. For the rest, we're all being cataloged and sorted and scheduled for our own time, and when I say that, I'm not being facetious. I mean it. The only way, however slim, that we get out of this alive is if we stick together. If the fractured groups come back together, if we wake the F up and realize it's not left versus right, it's not black versus white, it's not men versus women, it's us versus them. And we're losing big time. It's late in the game and we're losing big. Um, Whoever you are, you stumble on the podcast, you stumble on the website, you don't know me. You may not think of me as a friend in this, whether I'm right or wrong or on your side. I don't want to be the harvest. I don't want that for anyone. But I guarantee if we don't fix that part of our society, we're cooked. Imagine for a minute having a firsthand view. Let's go back in history, the Bolshevik Revolution, just putting people into a meat grinder, systematically torturing, shooting, stabbing, starving to death people to the tunes of tens of millions. And over the decade, let's say we stop at 60 million, 50 to 60 million. Imagine if we saw that on the nightly news every night, night after night, and maybe even some grisly pics to go along with it. Imagine if we didn't just listen to the news people on TV decade after decade and the reporters from famous magazines telling us everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's all fine. Nothing to see here. Fine. And that's what they did. That's what they did every night for decades. Even reporters who knew the truth. They told us that there was nothing to see there. 50, 60 million dead. Think about that. Think about our reaction after 9/11 with a much smaller death toll. Still tragic, but 50 million, mostly Christians, by the way, died. And here in the US, crickets. We hunt each other. It's what we do. It's what we've always done. The only question is who is the hunter and who is the prey? And there's also the question of why, of motive. If you understand motive, you can better understand the hunter. But of course, the killer will always try to obscure the motive, to deny the motive, to create a false motive. But we forget the game. And that's by design. The hunter never wants you to know that you're in the crosshairs or why. You might run away at the last moment. You might make the hunt more expensive, more time consuming, or you might do the one thing no hunter ever wants. You might do the one thing the hunter fears. You might try to save yourself the only way that works in the long term. You, the prey, might try to turn the tables on the hunter and defend yourself. Or you may even attack. But I don't think in this case, at least that's my fear. Uh, that's what the algorithms say. That's what my senses tell me. You see, the programming is too deep, all encompassing. And the hunters have all your information, all your decisions, your wants, your needs, your desires, and your fears. You've given all of that on social media and all the data you farmed for them, graciously donating it. Actually, it's worse than that. The dumbasses we all are paid them lots of money, paid the hunters lots of money to accept our data. The hunters have a real-time feedback loop to gain your reactions, to gauge your reactions. The hunters have a real-time feedback loop to gauge your reactions. They know just when to ease up on the tightening, like a boa that has you in the grip. Let you get used to the constriction before they tighten the coil just a little bit more the next time, giving your lungs a little less room after each breath until eventually you have no more room to breathe. The prey usually doesn't know they're being hunted until it's too late. Prey usually can't conceptualize that something or someone wants to take them out, or they do and they just don't know how to defend against it. Of course, that's by design. A master hunter usually doesn't give his prey a chance. And why would he? Why would he? The game is ages old. changes with technology and circumstance, but the human nature behind it is the same. The future will bring some new wrinkles. The game will be altered and improved, personalized to fit the new hunters. So maybe it's not so much a new horror as a new knowing of an existing horror, a dormant horror, horror that was playing the long game, not knowing the past horror that never went away. Revelations about child trafficking, sex trafficking, satanic rituals among the people who run society. It's not really a new concept. Just knowing about it is. At least my generation, this present iteration of Western civilization wasn't privy to these things. Though there are some interesting stories from the past that we're not allowed to explore. It seems actually that some societies and some cultures were aware of it, and they did something about it. But remember that old adage about the victors and writing history? Yeah. The funny thing is that for thousands of years this has been going on. Some cultures were aware of it, other cultures weren't. And now, luckily for us, we all have TikTok brain. We're all 3 seconds stupid. We're all being played, manipulated, even now. When it seems like the tide is turning and you're becoming more aware, be careful. Remember who's feeding you all this information. Hell, I might be a network plant. You can't you can't trust anyone, at least not online. So what do we do? It's the thing, a lot of people fear mongering and talking about the problems, but what do we actually do? What's the way back? I don't know. I would say get out there, get back to community, talk to your neighbors, even if they hate you, even if they think orange hair is bad, or even if they think Uncle Joe wasn't creepy. The people who run this government, they're all on the same team and they're all compromised, e-file style. Almost all of them. And the ones who aren't compromised, they kick them out. They make sure somebody beats them in a race. They put tons of money to get those people out. Blue and red both. Don't fall for that game because it's part of this game. They're hunting you. The blue, the red. They're hunting you. Think about that. Our government should be hunting the people on those lists, in those files, with no exceptions. They can't because it's them. It's them. How could they hunt themselves? That doesn't even make sense. But we're programmed to look the other way, to follow our team. All of us. The files were in blue hands and then in red hands. And nothing. Where is the outrage? Where is the urgency to stop this? We've been programmed to accept it. We've been programmed to fear exposing this. It might hurt us too much. It might bring down the government. We used to be trained to resist something like this. We used to be trained to repel something like this. We've unlearned that knowledge. But back to the reprogramming. I think Generation X was the beginning of the high tech programming. We were the guinea pigs, a new age of disinformation personalized to you and to me. In with the new horror, the desensitization, the unfiltered gore. I remember those websites. Rotten.com, I think, was the first sick site back then. I don't know if that still exists. I have no more curiosity about such things. The horrors of the past, the horror I grew up reading and watching in movies just didn't seem that scary anymore. After the real horrors people face, how could any of that really scare you? Killer clowns and things like that didn't cut it. The news and the things you find on the internet seemed much more ominous, and they were real. We're all being hunted. There might be another Bolshevik revolution in our future, or maybe something worse. Bolsheviks with better tech, Bolsheviks with better weapons, Bolsheviks with no formidable enemies, no counterbalance to worry about. I'll leave you with a quote from George Orwell's 1984. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot on your face forever. Visit GESLIER'SGame.com. Check us out on social, like, comment, follow, subscribe. Facebook, X, IG, and Rumble. Rumble soon. Soon, but before the before the next episode. But a warning to everyone. This site could potentially be a network simulation meant to help categorize you for further adjudication for your aggressions. Frequent visitation to this site could mean the privileges, including but not limited to use of certain apps and online services, employment, and travel. Understand that your interaction on this website may or may not result in your security threat level upgrade. Prolonged exposure to this channel and other affiliated channels may even put you on a termination list ahead of future conflicts. Enjoy the game. It's playing you right now.